small town outside of Bloemfontein. My parents owned a modest house, built in the 1960s, with creaky floors and a long, narrow hallway that always felt colder than the rest of the house. When I was around 13, my mom found this old antique mirror at a local flea market. It had a thick, gold-painted wooden frame with intricate carvings. She was obsessed with it and hung it in the hallway, right across from my bedroom door. The first night it was up, I remember waking up to the faint sound of humming. At first, I thought it was my mom. She used to hum while doing laundry. But when I got up and peeked down the hallway, the sound was coming from the mirror. It wasn't music. It sounded like someone humming from inside the glass. I brushed it off as my imagination and went back to bed. But over the next few weeks, I started noticing small things. The mirror would fog up in random spots, even when it wasn't humid. I'd catch what looked like smudged fingerprints on the inside of the glass. One night, around 2 a.m., I woke up needing to use the bathroom. As I opened my door, I froze. Someone was standing in front of the mirror. At first, I thought it was my mom again. The figure was tall and thin, with long hair, wearing what looked like a white nightgown. I whispered, "Mom." The figure didn't move. When I stepped closer, I realized she wasn't facing me. She was facing the mirror, and she was inside it. Her reflection looked wrong. Her head was tilted at an impossible angle, and when I blinked, she turned, slowly, to look directly at me. Her eyes were pure black. I ran to my room, slammed the door, and hid under my blanket. The next morning, I told my mom, but she brushed it off as a bad dream. My dad even laughed and said I'd been watching too many ghost stories online. That night, I begged my mom to take the mirror down. She said no, it was too beautiful and expensive. But after that, strange things started happening to her. She began talking to herself when she walked by the hallway. Sometimes I'd hear her say things like, "Yes, I understand. No, I won't tell him." When I asked who she was talking to, she'd snap, "Mind your business." Then one morning, she didn't come out of her room. My dad went to check, and she was sitting on her bed, just staring blankly into the air, whispering something over and over. They took her to the hospital that day. The doctor said she had suffered a psychological break. While she was away, my dad finally agreed to take the mirror down. When he lifted it off the hook, I'll never forget the sound. It was like a deep exhale, almost relieved. Behind the mirror, on the wall, were dozens of small handprints. They looked like they were made in dust, but when I ran my finger through them, it felt sticky. We threw the mirror away that night. My mom came home a few weeks later. She was quieter, but she was okay, until the day she saw her reflection in a store window. She froze, pale as a ghost. When I asked what was wrong, she said softly, "She's still looking at me." The guest room. In 2021, I rented a small 2-bedroom cottage outside of George. It was the kind of place that looked peaceful. Old trees, a wraparound porch, and a guest room I figured I'd use for storage. Landlady, an older woman named Mrs. Meyer, told me the room used to belong to her late son. She said it hadn't been used in years, but I could make of it whatever I wanted. I moved in midwinter, and the first few nights were quiet. But one morning, I woke up to find the door to the guest room slightly open. I knew I'd left it closed. I even remembered the squeaky sound it made when I shut it. Inside, the air felt stale, like a hospital room that hadn't been touched in years. There was a faint smell of old cologne. I shrugged it off and went to work. When I came home that evening, I noticed the door open again. This time, the window inside the guest room was also open, and the curtains were blowing gently. I tried to shut the window, but it was stiff, like someone had forced it open from the outside. That night, I set up my phone to record, just to see if anything strange happened. I left the guest room door cracked open slightly. When I checked the footage the next morning, I almost dropped my phone. Around 2:17 a.m., the door creaked open, slowly. A shadow moved across the floor. It looked like the silhouette of a man, but I couldn't make out any details. Then, and this part still chills me, I heard a voice on the recording. A deep, quiet whisper. "It's still my room." I moved the phone closer the next night to try again. Same thing. 2:00, 3:00 a.m. The door opened, The shadow appeared, but this time, the whisper was louder, angry. Why are you here? I stopped recording after that. I tried sleeping in the living room for a few nights, but things assuaded. Every night at around 2 a.m., I'd hear footsteps pacing inside the guest room. When I finally got the courage to open the door, I found the bed made, perfectly, like someone had just moved it down. I asked Mrs. Meyer if her son had passed away in that room. She hesitated before saying, "He used to sleepwalk. One winter night he wandered outside and never came back. They found him near the river, frozen." That night I decided I'd had enough. I started packing my things, but before I left, I walked into the guest room one last time. I whispered, "I'm sorry. I didn't know." The air felt still. I turned to go, and then I heard a soft voice behind me. "Stay." I ran out, slammed the door, and left the house that same night. When I went back the next morning with Mrs. Meyer to grab the last of my things, the guest room was empty. The curtains were gone. The bed was stripped bare. She looked confused and said quietly, "That's strange. I thought we locked this door after he died." She turned the key in the lock, and it didn't